bet you all didn't know that Bertha is studying French, and she pointed out that she's actually slipped there and said circulated. It's not a misspelling. I turned it right around again. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for giving up your Saturday morning. Thank you to all the speakers who are here, who give of themselves every day and benefit us every day, and to have taken their Saturday to ensure that we have as much information as possible. What an incredible community we live in. Thank you, Marcy. This has all happened because of Marcy. Marcy is the producer. I wish I had her when I was in the film business. She's amazing, and she has put this whole day together, and believe me, it wasn't an easy feat. So, and George and Alina, who got us started here. I've never been here before. This is an amazing space. This is our second town hall regarding wildfire, and a vital one for understanding the importance of being prepared in case we need to evacuate. Remember, it's not a case of if, it's when. I had questions as a constituent which actually have blown up since I've become a supervisor. The traffic light Murphys, who's responsible for turning it off? HOAs, do they each have a plan? Is it better to go uphill when evacuating? Do I take the route everyone else takes? How can I be of service to my elder neighbors? What happens if we have to shelter in place? What are the best practices? Will my house be safe if I put an evacuation tag on the door when I leave? I've heard of helpful hints, but I know that there must be so much more. Hints like always drive with a full tank of gas from now until the next rain. Use the guidelines for prepping your house and have a well-prepared go-bag. Know where your pet carriers are and make sure they're easily accessible. Put some hotel information in your neighboring towns in your phone now so you can easily find a place to go. Those are Marcy's notes. Yesterday when we came to set up, there was such valuable conversation that transpired by the experts that we have here today. It was pure gold. I want to encourage you to get the most out of today, even you on Zoom. Hang on, I'm gonna admit somebody. Don't be shy, ask the questions that you have. This is your opportunity and our opportunity as a community to get the knowledge we need and be prepared. I believe in practice, being prepared and running drills, whether it's just for yourself, your family, or your community. Yesterday, Chief Johnson came up with an excellent idea, and I'm going to ask that he shares that when he speaks. I went to a boarding school, and I was in a house that had 75 kids, and we had to do a fire drill every month, and man, we hated it. It was just such a waste of time. Then one morning, fire drill went off at 5:30 in the morning. All the kids got out. I had a dormitory, so I was in charge of kids. We got out in 2.5 minutes. In 5 minutes, that's what it looked like. No, you know why? It's not. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
If
we had done our drills, we would not have gotten out. There would have been children in that building that got caught. What was interesting also was that, I just tried it, and for some reason it's not. What was interesting was that the other side of the building burned down faster than where the fire started. It got into the attic and ran to the other side and burned completely down to the ground. And lastly, it was a wake-up call for me because I only had the clothes I had on my back, and that was the bed I was sleeping in.
Is that the sky up above?
That is the sky.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So what do we hope to get out of today? A lot of key information. We will put together a brief from today's meeting that will be available online and in handout form. Please reach out directly with me with any questions or issues you may have. I did leave some business cards over here on the bleacher. And now, on to our experts. I'd like to introduce Chief Johnson.
I just have words to read off of, so I'll go ahead. Say good morning to everybody.
No.
Oh, the mic's not working. Okay, how's that?
That's better.
Gotta be really close.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We did a run through yesterday.
All right, so maybe I'll hold it right here,
Good.
and they can see me.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you can all see me, I guess, if you want to see me. But in any case, good morning, everybody.
Hello.
I'm gonna find a place to put my notes.
Well,
It's just fine by me. All right, well, hey, thanks for coming out. Feels like a beautiful morning to be out here in Arnold next to White Pines Lake and see all of you. So it was a pleasure getting up out of bed, getting ready to come down here and talk to everybody, especially about a topic as important as evacuation. I think that for years since I came here, it's been evacuation's been pretty much the most, probably one of the most important topics to talk about. In addition to that, probably one of the most difficult topics to talk about because it's so hard to pin down. And it's really the dynamic situation of what wildfire brings to the table as far as an emergency challenge and how we address it. And I do believe over the recent years we have made strides in improving some of the ways that we can address it. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about kind of maybe what the Ebbets Pass fire role is, and then we're going to parlay that into the bigger fire department, which is CAL FIRE, and how their role is, and then we're going to roll from presenter to presenter, kind of paint you a picture of how we all work together to provide an evacuation situation to you all, both beforehand and during an incident. So essentially, everybody knows here in Arnold, part of living in this wonderful place and in this environment is the inherent risk of wildfire. So that's why you're here. So we're not talking about evacuation from a tsunami, right? We're probably safe from that. I say probably because who knows what's on the face of the world these days. And again, I want to talk about when you evacuate from a wildfire, and we're not evacuating from something that's from a planned source like the ocean, right? We don't know where the fire is going to start or where it's going to push or be threatening us from. We kind of do with the ocean, right? So unfortunately, we can't put up those signs that say evacuation route like when we go to the beach and it points, hey, go this way. Every time, go away from the ocean, right? Unfortunately, even in the fire service, with everything that we've seen, I can't tell you that, hey, fire's going to occur here. You need to go this way. Oh, and here's the road. And if you're over here, it's impossible. So I think most of you are sensitive to that. And for those of you that are wondering, like, why don't we have a sign that just directs us in the same area every single time? It's because fires don't occur in the same area. And weather impacts fires and all these other things. And every single fire is different. Although when our CAL FIRE partners get up here, they can probably tell you that the fire history maps do share a lot of information because the topography stays the same. So we can kind of base some things off of that in wind events and things like that. So honestly, when it comes to being working in public safety, there is nothing more important to me than each and every one of you, your safety and your life, okay? So I want you to keep that paramount in your mind as we go through today, because I have heard arguments when we say, hey, put an evacuation sign on your address, and they go, what about looters and my stuff? Hey, it's not my number one priority. My number one priority is you. And if our service folks that are coming through from law enforcement, we'll talk about how that works, can skip along with houses that are evacuated and maybe get to one where somebody couldn't self-evacuate for whatever reason, that's going to could save somebody's life by just you letting people know, hey, we're gone already. You can skip these 3 houses and you get to the 4th, and maybe there wasn't enough time if they had to stop at every single door. You can kind of see where I'm going with that argument, right? So along with that, I want to let you know that what your job is today is to gather some real good intel on how you can get prepared now when there's no smoke in the air, right? And so if you're getting prepared now,
There is smoke.
Can you mute yourself, please? Can you hear us?
It's your laptop, Martin.
It's your laptop is on you.
It's not, though.
Thank you.
I gotta step back so he can get that figured out.
You're on mute.
Not anymore.
How's that?
Hear me now? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, finally.
Hey, all right. All right, so, continuing, let's see. What was I oh, smoke in the air, that's
Yeah.
right. So get ready now, right? The time to get ready for evacuation is not when the orders, or not advisory, warnings, right, are coming out to tell you that it's time to leave, okay? We need to get those boxes ready. We need to get your important medications ready. We need to get whatever you think is the most important thing, that box, that go box, ready to go. And if we have medical situations or loved ones that are even, non-ambulatory, meaning they don't move very fast or they don't move at all without assistance, you need to be way ahead of the power curve as much as possible. So those are things to keep in mind. What's going through your mind right now, and, as we go along, we're going to hear from other experts that have filled different components of the evacuation system. But some of you may go, well, isn't there somebody that's going to be coming in to do help me get out of here and things like that? And I'm not saying that there wouldn't be, but in the early onset, when a fire starts, like right now in an area, it's the local responders. It's Ebbets Pass, all 8 of our personnel for not doing something else, which is not that much. It's the law enforcement folks that are on duty and our local CAL FIRE folks. Now, we all have big hearts and we want to do a great job for you, but sometimes it's long, short count from the 5,000, 8,000 people you see at these big fires that it takes to go door to door and fight a big fire. So it's going to be a lot of spinning up of the capacity of the county and notification and us going door to door, sheriff's office going door to door. Just don't expect the type of response you would hope for in the very early hours. I'd say in that first 12 to 24 hours. All we have is our local resources. So we need to really be self-sufficient, and that's kind of my underlying message for all that, is get prepared now and get out early. I want to mention there are some HOAs who have done a fantastic job of helping themselves to the table of evacuation planning. Forest Meadows is probably the premier HOA in this regard, and there is a HOA evacuation plan that they have here today. I'm sure you could probably utilize that plan that they have with their permission as a template for your HOA if you want to build a HOA evacuation plan. And you can see where if you're talking about a HOA building a plan, it's very specific to that area. And we know resources are limited, but of course, as partners, we're happy to assist with that from your local fire, and I'm sure, CAL FIRE, not to speak for them, or the sheriff's office, but I'm sure they would participate as well. That's a very effective way to go about it. And, kind of in the closing remarks from Ebbets Pass side anyway, is some of the areas, we've worked hard with the partners. I see Heather with State Park. She's been fantastic helping the route out back that connects Love Creek and the Ben Smith Road out to the park. We don't, have people go out there and drive up and down that road, but there is gates that will be opened by emergency responders in case of needing to get out of there. Steve Kafka from SPI's wonderful partners. They've helped keep the units 14, 15, and 16 because it's one way into that part of the subdivision over there by Flying Acres. Off of St. Moritz, there's a road that it's on SPI land, and again, another gate that gets open. Blue Lake Springs, the list goes on. So I think Supervisor Hubbard was kind of posturing in a certain direction earlier that, perhaps one of these days we can take it to the next level and get a opportunity to have a couple of hours where the locals can get out there and see what those look like, because they are not necessarily low clearance roads, just kind of an awareness day. So, or an awareness couple hours, or maybe we could work something out. So those are kind of the things in the works from our end. And so now I'd like to, I know we're gonna have time for questions later, but that's the local fire side of things. I could go on and on since I've had so much coffee this morning, but I won't. And then, so I want to bring up, we are in what's called the state response area. And I'm sure it's probably confusing sometimes to hear what the heck that is. But it's a wonderful, wonderful thing because while we're your local fire department and your ambulance responders and your paramedics and whatnot, and it doesn't matter what patch is on the jacket when you go to any kind of response, we all work as hard as we can to do whatever needs to be done to stop whatever emergency is emerging. But as soon as we transition into something that's bigger than just a fire truck putting a fire out, when it comes to wildland fire, your fire department, the lead fire department is CAL FIRE. And I gotta tell you, they're fantastic folks, do a great job. We're lucky to have them here. A lot of them are our local folks as well. So I'd like to introduce CAL FIRE and BJ Emlich. Come on up. And he's gonna talk to you about all things CAL FIRE. And yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Mike. Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good.
Awesome. So again, my name is BJ Emlich. I'm one of the local battalion chiefs here. I supervise Altaville, which is Angels Camp, Murphy's, and Copropolis, all the way down to Knights Ferry. So I figure what some of the things that I'll cover today is the Ready, Set, Go program that's found on readyforwildfire.com. That's got a bunch of helpful tips and tricks on how to be prepared for these types of things. And then I'll also briefly kind of discuss what happens when you call 911 and who's going to show up and kind of who's in charge and some basic organization on the behind the scenes stuff to kind of help you guys understand. So the first thing, the Ready, Set, Go program, again, that's on readyforwildfire.org, not .com. And it's a couple of components. So the first part of Ready is preparing your property with the 4291 compliant LE 100, which is 100 foot of clearance around your house that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And then also the home hardening program, which is trying to construct and improve your house with some of the more fire resistant type materials on the outside of your house and some of those things that you can do so that if a wildfire does come through, your house has a much better chance of survival. I cannot stress enough the clearance around the structure is probably one of the most important things that you can do. It protects you if for some reason you have to shelter in place. It really makes your structure less resistant to fire. And then it also gives the responding fire departments the ability to save your house and not injure them, because if the house is completely engulfed in vegetation, more than likely if it's going to injure a firefighter, they're probably not going to be able to make a stand there and protect your house. So it's very, very important. I know that privacy is also really important up here in the community, but kind of meeting in the middle is what we're really asking for. We're not asking you to cut every single thing down in your yard, but really make that more fire resistant. The set part of Ready, Set, Go is preparing your family. That's creating a evacuation kit, which there's some very useful tools on Red Cross and FEMA. There's some links on that readyforwildfire.org on how to prepare a kit. And having one in your vehicle, having one at home, exercising that stuff with your family so that everybody in your family knows where the emergency shutoffs are for the house, where those evacuation routes are going to be in your neighborhood. That's something else that's very important, is maybe the way that you normally drive in for your house is not the only way out. And we can look on Google Maps or some of these other navigational tools that tell you on different routes, but go clarify those. Go drive it and make sure it's actually something that you can use if you have to get out in a hurry. I'm not going to talk too much today about evacuations and repopulations. I'll let Lieutenant Stark talk about that. But for CAL FIRE, our role in that is to make recommendations. And the jurisdiction that has authority for evacuations and repopulations is the Sheriff's Department here locally. So we provide that information to them on what we suggest, and then they make that call. The The other thing too is have a plan for your pets, all those types of things, important documents, so that when it comes time for go, which is our next step, you can grab it and leave. Because unfortunately, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the campfire that was in Paradise. Fire started early in the morning. We had 85 fatalities on that fire, and a lot of it was attributed to people not being prepared. That's the reality. It doesn't seem, I think everybody that gets hit by some type of emergency thinks, I didn't think it was going to happen to me. I thought it was somebody else. I heard the stories. I had no idea this was going to happen to me. So being prepared is the most important portion of this. And ultimately, it gives the fire departments or the responding units the ability to focus on what they're really there for and not have to redirect resources into a full-blown rescue operation like we saw on the campfire. So instead of extinguishing the fire and saving homes, it was trying to rescue people and save people's lives, which is why it's so important to be prepared for that stuff. I'm not going to cover too much on the evacuation routes, but I do want to say that I think human nature is to seek lower ground most of the time, especially here in our community. Most of the people are going to want to drive west on Highway 4 down towards Murphy's Angels Camp. But I will say this, if the fire is below you, and let's say it's in Forest Meadows and you live up in Camp Connell or something like that, please do not head down the hill unless you're directed to by either law enforcement or the fire department, because that's how we're going to get into a big traffic jam. People are going to get stuck in their cars. They're not going to have the ability to turn around, and you're going to be landlocked there in your vehicle right on a highway that's, as we all know, is in the vegetation, in the timber. So it's very important to be mindful on where you're going to go and where the fire is. Listen to the local radio station, social media, the internet, radio scanners. There's lots of wildfire alert applications out there and notification services. So, just be mindful of that. If everybody tries to leave at the exact same time, we're going to have some traffic issues for sure, which one of our partners will talk more about traffic routes. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk really quick about what happens if you call 911. What is the organization of a fire and whose roles are what? I'm going to touch very briefly on it. So if you call 911 from your cell phone, typically it's going to be routed to, depending on where you're at, to CHP. CHP is going to determine it's a wildfire. They're going to transfer it to the jurisdiction having authority, which if you call 911 up here, it'll end up being the CAL FIRE Dispatch Center in San Andreas. Within 3 minutes of the time that San Andreas gets that call, we're already confirming that the resources are responding to the incident, to the reported smoke. So it doesn't matter if you see a small smoke in the summertime or you see a massive fire, we're going to treat it all the same, because the early resource dispatching is part of the keys for our success in extinguishing these fires and keeping them small. And in the summertime, that can consist of 8 CAL FIRE fire engines, 1 bulldozer, 2 hand crews, 2 air tankers, an air attack plane, 2 Type 1 helicopters, and then all the local fire departments having jurisdiction of mutual aid. So that's all within 3 minutes of the time that you see a smoke, report it, and then we send everything. So once the first engine company or resource gets at scene, they establish what's called the incident commander. So the incident commander is the person that has the ultimate responsibility for decision making and has responsibility for management of the fire. Usually that's a company officer, which is a captain or an engineer that's on a fire truck, and that's regardless of who has the jurisdictional authority of that specific type of incident. So it doesn't matter who it is. Somebody gets at scene, starts making decision making right off the get-go, gets a report on how big the fire is, how much more stuff we need, and those types of things. Depending on the complexity of the incident, then we have a battalion chief such as myself that comes in and will assume responsibility of that incident command system. In other words, the incident commander. In some cases, we go into what's called unified command, which is having multiple incident commanders to help with the decision-making process. So if we had a large fire here in Arnold, we would more than likely be in what we call unified command with Chief Johnson with the Evans Pass Fire Protection District, because they have an interest in unwanted fires within their fire district, because they have the responsibility for the structures and the infrastructure and those types of things. So that way that we're both making decisions based on our constituents or our taxpayers or stakeholders to meet a common goal. So the cooperation amongst the agencies up here where we live is fantastic. Never had a problem with that, and I'm really proud to say that, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's with the Sheriff's Department or OES or Red Cross or any of the agencies that we work with. It's always a common message and working together in decision making. So that's kind of how it works. In the unfortunate circumstance where if we've exceeded the capabilities of the resources that we have here locally, and then we can call an incident management team, which we have 6 incident management teams here and Type 1 incident management teams in the state of California. And those are for those larger fires where we have 3,000 people assigned to it. And you'll start seeing out-of-town people here, but still having local people involved with the decision-making process. And it really helps with the span control, which is the concept that, and I'm sure most of you are aware of this, trying to supervise more than 7 people at a time becomes tough. It becomes super tough. And so that's the concept behind the incident command system, which was pretty much copied from the military for our veterans in the room. And that's pretty much how, do you guys have any questions about how kind of a local fire works or the Ready, Set, Go program? Okay, great. So what we're going to do is segue into some evacuation and repopulation stuff. So next up, we'll have Lieutenant Starks from the Calaveras County Sheriff's Department. Thank you guys for your time.
Oh,
So on behalf of, I do not. On behalf of Sheriff Rick DiVasilia, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Ms. Powers, Mr. Hubbard, and anybody else who was involved with putting this together. Our position, hope's not a good plan, so planning for an unplanned event is the way to be successful. We've already had several pre-meetings with Evans Pass Fire, other fire chiefs, and local law enforcement to make sure that everybody's on the same page and we're all working in the same direction. So the sheriff's role in the process of announcing a wildfire evacuation, the call comes in, and our process is the beat deputy or whoever's assigned to that area will respond to the fire and immediately link up with the lead fire at the original IC. That could be the hood of a truck, but they're going to start making decisions. We're going to lean very heavily upon the fire industry to decide which way the fire is going, what resources we need for law enforcement, and where the evacuations need to occur, both warnings and mandatory. So we start out with the mandatory areas first, preferably going to door if we can, depending on the rate of spread of the fire and how fast it's moving, and how densely populated that area is. So prefer knock on doors, tell people what's going on and which way to go. Followed up later on by the Red Cross will be opening up the centers, and I don't want to steal their thunder. So once we start doing the evacuations with CAL FIRE, the first order is the advisory. So when you see the fire, and if you need extra assistance, let the deputy know. And if you have large animals, we can make arrangements for that. We can get animal services or other rescue animals, large animal rescue services up there to help you. So the sooner you can get out, like BJ said, we don't want everybody out at the same time because that would clog it and make it more dangerous. So warnings are real. We're not trying to inconvenience people. We're not trying to make it difficult, but warnings are real. We take those very seriously when we move somebody or ask somebody to leave their home. And then we move on to mandatory evacuation orders, and then OES will talk about the tags that we're going to ask people to put on their homes. I will say that the #1 question we get asked for evacuation tags, will that open me up to looting? I can tell you on a large scale fire, we call in mutual aid resources from around the state and flood areas with law enforcement. The beauty of the evacuation tag, if they're driving around and they see anybody walking, moving, or even near that house, they know nobody's supposed to be there, and they pay extra attention to those houses. They'll get out, they'll walk around, they'll shake doors, they'll check the windows. So that lets the deputy know nobody should be there, and anybody there should not be there. Just to illustrate that point, on the Arola fire, we caught several people trying to break through the evacuation lines and gave them a special night in jail. Same thing with the electrifier. Both Amador and Calaveras had people trying to breach the evacuation zones, and we treated them. It's a automatic go to jail. There's no leeway for that. So the first question we get asked when we ask somebody to leave their home is, where do I go? Which way? East or west, like we talked about already on Highway 4, and when can I come back? So the repopulation effort, depending on the size and scope of the fire and how much damage is done, could be from, it was a 5-acre fire, no structures or infrastructure threatened or burned, let's get everybody back in, nice and easy. If it's a large-scale fire and there's damage to infrastructure, telephone poles, gas lines, roadways, unsafe structures, there's a process we go through to ensure that we're having you go back to your house in a safe manner. We want to make sure that fire department has all their apparatus out of the way so there's no interaction or possible accidents with running in fire trucks or running over their equipment. We want to make sure that there's no hazardous material spilt from anything that leaked out of somebody's house. So we have a checklist we go through to environmental health, code enforcement, PG&E, CHP, road department, to make sure that we're sending you back in. And most importantly, we're checking with fire to make sure that it's safe to go back in. Is it safe to go back right now, or is that fire going to hook around and maybe come back and then we'll have to evacuate you again? That what we don't want to do is put you back in and, oh no, bring you back out. So we often experience frustration of, my house didn't burn, my subdivision didn't burn, why can't I go back? Well, the threat of wildfire still might exist, and it's the sheriff's #1 goal to get you back in your house as soon as possible, with the caveat that it's safe. Our #1 thing is safety. We want to make sure everybody's 100% safe. And I know the Red Cross makes it as easy as possible to be away from your home with the services they provide. We talked about having your your address clearly posted. In a wildfire, it's not too critical to have your address posted, but in a call for service, maybe you're having a medical issue, it's very important to have your address clearly marked at the bottom of your driveway. So when the deputy or the first responders are looking for it, they can find your address. Specifically, if there's snow, if you can, knock that snow off, because if they have to go check multiple residents to get to your house, that just delays the already could be extended response time. So, quick overview, sheriff and fire get together, decide where the fire is going, get the evacuation plan together, and have our deputies and basically any law enforcement officer and fire respond to help get the message out. And OES will talk about what social media and electronic messaging they're going to do in collaboration with the sheriff's office and the first responders. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
They can get those reflective signs at the substation down by the market.
Yeah, the sheriff's volunteer substation has the reflective signs we spoke of. Yes.
You talked about impossible looting, rattling doors. My understanding is you're supposed to leave your front door unlocked when you evacuate.
So the question was, do you leave your front door unlocked if you have to evacuate? I would say no. So if there's a fire and law enforcement needs to get into your house, or fire needs to get into your house to take some type of action, we're gonna get in. We'll get in if we need to, but that lock just might be that one layer that keeps the lazy criminal from getting in, or making a noise when we can hear it to go get them. So lock your doors and windows, we'll get in. The fire department's very skilled at it. We have our ways. Sir.
I was surprised after a recent incident. The county has no fire marshal on staff for investigation. Is that correct?
So the question was, does the county have a fire marshal on staff? We don't right now. We are in the process of working. The Board of Supervisors is working on getting a fire marshal through the Calaveras Fire Chiefs Association, so that's in process. The way we investigate fires now, and I'm going to step over on BJ's turf a little bit, there's fire prevention officers that are law enforcement certified for the state of California, and they would investigate any suspicious fires, arson, things of that nature. And then if need be, we would call in additional resources from law enforcement. Some of our staff has some experience in that area. Yes, ma'am.
So the red tracks that I have evacuated, if I know that my neighbor is not there, could I put that sign at their house too?
So the question was, if my neighbor's not home, should I also put a tag on their house? And I'll tell you no, because you need to get your property posted and get out. Let the deputies come through, they'll knock on the door and we'll post it. It's more important for you to get out. And if the deputies are driving by and you see them, they knock on your door, you can let the deputy know, hey, my neighbor's not home and we'll take care of that. It's more important for you to get going than to go next door. Let us take that risk. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about repopulation.
Yes.
When you repopulate, do you do it just by a subdivision or an area, or because people with disabilities and medical issues may need it may be safe for their neighbor, but it's not safe for them?
So the question was, do we take medical condition and disabilities into account when we do repopulation? And the answer is yes. So the repopulation effort is a very intensive effort that's basically brings in all disciplines to make sure, and in Mark Twain Health, Dignity Health, the ambulances, everybody's involved to make sure that it's okay to go back, and if we go back, can we support that? Again, we don't want to put anybody into an unsafe situation, and then I'm quite certain, and I'll speak freely because I know they do a great job, Red Cross can probably accommodate additional days if that's needed for disabilities or medical conditions. So there's a checklist, and almost everything you can think of or agency is talked to and consulted. The sheriff is very big on having a collaborative effort. We don't know everything, so we reach out to the experts in the different agencies that do.
Thank you.
Well, yes, sir, in the back.
When the internet goes out, we get a notification on our phone. When PG&E goes out, we get a notification on the phone. Would we get something similar to that in the county?
So I'll let OES talk about that, but yes, there are multiple different layers to the evacuation notification and repopulation notification. I can tell you that Sheriff DiBasilio is working very closely with state legislatures and other entities to get what they call an FM alert program. It's the size of the old transistor radio that we're all familiar with, and it works off radio waves. He's already reached out to local radio stations, and they're looking for a funding source through grants, through PG&E contributions, and other venues. So we'll have the cell phone, and we'll have an FM radio that you can take with you. So if the cell towers go down, we'll have that. We're still working on it. It's just a matter of finding the funding.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir.
Down the Highway 4 corridor, and the street is perpendicular to Highway 4. Do you have management to manage that traffic under there?
So the question was, do we have enough people to manage roads that interact with Highway 4? So I'm going to be upfront with you. No, we do not initially. So right now, at any given time for Calaveras Sheriff, there's 4 deputies for the entire county, one for each beat, and a supervisor, which is a sergeant. Our minimum staffing level would be a sergeant and 3 deputies, one for half, one for the other half, and one for going back and forth. Murphy's Law tells us that's when we're going to have an incident, when we have 3 on. So when that call comes out, we immediately reach out to our partners. We reach out to state parks, Fish and Game, the fire prevention officers, if they're not already working the fire, CHP, and we bring them in. Eventually, as the fire progresses, and like BJ talked about, as we open up that incident management system, we will bring more in. We'll work with our road department to get signs posted and message boards. But honestly, at the very onset, we're going to be leaning very far forward to get the evacuations done as quickly as possible, and then we'll backtrack to get the signage done. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, there is an exit or a, road to Tuolumne County that's forest. If the fire's not there, will we be able to go that way rather than try Highway 4?
So the question was, there's a forest road to Tuolumne County. would you be able to use that? In an emergency situation, you're gonna be able to use whatever road you can. Just make sure that the fire department or the sheriff's office direct you to that area. There was some initial chatter on on the roll of fire where social media was abuzz. Oh, take this road, take that road. I know it's gonna work. Don't listen to that. Just because it's not on the internet, on Facebook, it's not vetted. And that person may not have, sorry about that, may not have the big picture. There are some apps that talk about wildfires. Watch Duty. Watch Duty is a very good app. It'll tell you where the fire is at, how big it is, generally where it's going. But remember, that's not a vetted platform, but it'll give you a very good general idea of what's going on. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a map that we could put together to create so that we know where those fire roads are?
So is there a map that we could put together where those fire roads are? I'd say, I'm sure there's a map, and I would defer that to OES because that's kind of their ballpark, but that's not a bad idea. Sir?
Yeah, are you, I don't see any Forest Service personnel here. Are you working with the Forest Service for some of their better roads to make, so they can make it a little bit safer for vehicles to pass over it? Because I know after the winter, a lot of them are rocky and rutted and those things. Like you could go Black Springs Road all the way to West Point, you know, it takes a while. And it's just like Bertha said, you can go to Tuolumne County on some of them. And there is a map that you can get at the ranger station that has all your numbered roads that you can go through Stanislaus Forest.
So the question was, do we coordinate with Forest Service? Yes. To answer your question, whether I'm here, I don't know, but we have had conversations with them this year already. I can tell you that due to the storms that we're all aware of, they were heavily impacted, and I can't speak to the amount of resources they have to make those roads passable, which is why I would not rely on word of mouth or the internet. So it's a work in progress, I can tell you, but they have their, I don't know if you can say their hands full, they got their trucks full of things to do.
Well, you all do.
Yeah, we all do, but it's not an excuse, it's a reason. Yeah, there are no excuses, that's just the reason. I know they're working hard on
Their
it.
property, you know, that's all the Forest Service land.
Correct. Anybody else?
Can I just say, yesterday when we were talking, some of the first responders were saying that they got stuck themselves. Was it you? Who was it? So don't go any which way, and because people don't know you're there. So it's very important to know where you're going. And have a four-wheel drive.
Yeah. John?
Hey, just a question. Do you know, I know at the end of last fire season, Forest Service had an order in place that they were going to put it out if it started, not just let it go. Do you know if that has been continued on through this year, or has that been rescinded?
So I don't know if it's been rescinded. I do know, the question was, will the Forest Service, and I'm going to paraphrase it, tell me if I'm wrong, John. Will the Forest Service take a more aggressive approach at putting the fire out rather than letting it burn for a management concept?
I mean, they put an emergency one in, what was it, during,
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
that rescinded after this year, or if that continued on. That was just my question.
I don't know either, but I can tell you that the Forest Service has a different land management objective than, say, CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE owns the land, it's state land. The Forest Service uses fire for a management practice. And we went to a conference recently with Forest Service there, and there was some leaning towards being more aggressive on fires, but I don't want to, kind of want to stay in my lane.
I just didn't know if you guys had a notice or anything.
I'm going to give you a hearty, I think so.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to OES, our partners in fire management.
All right, well, while that gets put up, my name is Baljit Singh. I am with Calaveras County Office of Emergency Services. I also have my partner Cameron Hardwell in the corner over there. We're going to talk about kind of what Lieutenant Starks was talking about, how the process goes. So we're going to get notified by the Sheriff's Office that there is an incident going on, whether that's a fire. More recently, we've had floods that we responded to these past 4 months. Yeah, we're gonna go next. So once the Sheriff's Office notifies us that there is an incident, depending on where that incident is, we are going to set up an emergency operations center. So that's going to bring in all of our mutual aid partners, Health and Human Services, American Red Cross, CAL FIRE. We'll have someone from the Sheriff's Office, Public Works, and a lot of the other county offices in there. So the Emergency Operations Center allows us to make decisions on what we're going to be doing throughout the incident, whether that's, sending sandbags down to all the fire stations, which we did during the winter storms, or identifying evacuation routes and pushing out notifications. Go to the next slide. So the first step that we are going to do is we are going to post on our social media platforms. We're going to send out a message through Everbridge and Zone Haven, which I'm going to talk more about in the next slide. In the Emergency Operations Center, as you can see pictured here, we have an incident commander, a planning support person, operations, logistics, finance and admin, to just go through the incident. We identify incident action plans to send out to whether that's the Sheriff's Office or the fire departments, up until CAL FIRE comes in and kind of takes over, and we just help them out with that. And once the incident is over, we do help out with recovery in partnership with American Red Cross and Health and Human Services, which I'm not going to take too much from them. Other than that, I'm going to bring in our state rep from Cal OES to talk about what his role is in the EOC.
Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and stand to the side here. I'm vertically challenged, so that way you guys can see me. As Baljit said, and it is a good day. Anytime I can hang out with Chief Johnson, that's a good day. And just speaking about getting stuck, I happened to come up right after to work up here at the fire department for the day, and I decided to take the scenic route, which was a bad idea, taking Sheep Ranch Road. So the road, there was more and more snow, and I'm just thinking to myself, how am I going to get through this? But lo and behold, I ran into a snowplow, and he got me to Highway 4, so it worked out. But anyway, my name is Ruben Armenta, and I work for Cal OES, and I am the response emergency service coordinator, and I work for Inland Region. So Inland Region basically covers most of the state from the Oregon border all the way down to Kings County. Wow. So I'm assigned to Calaveras County and San Joaquin County. So whenever there's an incident, what the county will do is they will reach out to me. I will come down to the EOC, and what I am is I am that liaison and that communication between local and state. And how that works is we provide resources, you name it. Our main priority is to take care of the state and whatever their needs are. So it can be from anything. So like Baljit mentioned, sandbags, we can get communications. One of the things that we just had was some hay drops to the floods down there in Kings County. There was some livestock they couldn't feed. So, we got some helicopters out there and they did a hay drop. So, wide variety of things that we can make happen for everyone. So I go to the EOC, and basically there's a lot of information that's being pushed up to the SOC, which is the State Operations Center. So it kind of starts out with local. If they don't have the resources, what it'll do is they'll let me know. I'll look within the region for those resources. If we can't get that, we push it up to the State Operations Center. So now it gets our pool gets a lot larger that's available to us. Once that happens, depending on how large the incident is, we can reach out to our federal partners. So now we got the entire United States where we can pull resources. So in a nutshell, that's basically what I do. As soon as the incident starts, what I start doing is I start to put together as a regional event summary report. And that is a series of events that happens that I can push up, because we got to start that recovery. As soon as the incident starts, we got to start recovery as well. So most of the time, there are things that are available as far as CDAA. You know, once we get into recovery, that's the California Disaster Assistance Act. The governor will proclaim that, and then if the event is big enough, it'll go presidential, and then we'll get a presidential declaration. So in a nutshell, that's basically what I do. The county is our main priority, and the residents of the county. So thank you for your time, and I will turn this back over to Baji.
All right, so can you go back a slide, please? All right, so our biggest, let's say, question that we always get is, how do we get notified of a fire, a flood, or any kind of incident that goes on in the county? So the sheriff's office is going to let us know about the incident that's happening, and we're going to go into the EOC, and I'm just going to kind of walk through where we update our information and how you can find that. So you can go to the Calaveras County main website, and you're going to go down to here where it says Community Information Center. Does everyone see that? Awesome. So it's going to load up, and the first thing that pops up is Zone Haven. Zone Haven is an application where we can put in where the closest shelter is, human shelter, where the closest animal shelter is. And so what's going to happen is we're going to send an alert out on Everbridge saying, Zone 1, 2, 3, it's time for you to evacuate. It can be a warning or it can be an order. He's right? Okay. So Sheriff's Office is going to tell us whether it's a warning or it's an order. We recommend that if it's a warning, you start packing your stuff and kind of start heading out, seeing how things are going. We don't have evacuation routes identified right now. However, we are in the process of doing that. I had some questions beforehand say, we live in Forest Meadows. What evacuation route do we take? Go away from the fire. The fire's over there, go over there. Don't go over there, go over there. All right? And the best way to know your zone is it's easy. We're going to hit search address. We'll just put Hazel Fischer Elementary School right there. And up top, it's going to tell me my zone. So Hazel Fischer as a school is in zone 47. It's going to tell me the status it's in, whether it's normal, whether you need to evacuate, and I think there's one more. And all clear, yeah. So, and then it's going to tell you the zone information. In a live incident, if you scroll down, it tells you the weather, community links, and normally it'll tell you where the closest human and animal shelter is to you. I'm going to let Health and Human Services identify where those are with Red Cross. So that is Zone Haven. I'm going to go to Everbridge now.
how to use that?
So if you're not signed up for Zone Haven, the best way to sign up is go to our Calaveras County website and go to the OES page. And the first thing that'll pop up is the Zone Haven box. You just put a username in, your first name, last name, password, and it's going to ask for 3 different contacts, whether that's your phone number, text message, or email. And you're going to put those in, and that's how we're going to be able to let you guys know, when to evacuate, if there's an incident going on, or any of that stuff. And there is a little tweak behind it. It's going to ask you how many people live in your household. So if there's 4 people, you sign up your wife, your kids, or whoever you want, right? It's going to notify the person that is on the top of the list. So make sure, whether it's your wife or your kid, each person has a Everbridge account so that they are notified. Because if you're, say, down in the Bay Area and your wife is up here, your wife's not going to get the notification saying it's time to evacuate. You will. So make sure everyone in the household is signed up individually. All right, red tags. So these are the red tags that Lieutenant Starks was talking about that you are going to place when you evacuate. We recommend that you put them on your door handle or your PO box outside of, wherever that is. This indicates that, you have left your home. It lets the sheriff's office know, hey, this person's out of their house, we can move on to the next home. So you can find these in the back table over there, as well as our little Zone Haven cards. Me or Cameron will be in the back at the end, letting you know what your zone is. You come up, we'll get you signed up and let you know what your zone is. Other than that, follow us on social media. We try and push information out as fast as we can, whether that's through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or even YouTube at times. Go to the next slide. We'll leave our contact information up, our main line, Cameron's information, as well as mine. Our phone numbers are on there. If you want to take a picture, feel free, or you can come talk to us afterwards. Other than that, that's all I got. Are there any questions?
Unfortunately, I have a cell phone, but it does not work up here. And so if the fire line is through, how on earth do you get notified? Should we change your carrier?
So the question was, she does not have cell service. How is she going to be notified if there is an incident? Yeah, so the sheriff's department will come in, knock on the door, let you know, what's going on, where to go. There's also a state application that Cal OES can put in for us if we request it. It's called WIA, right? Is it WIA? Yeah. And so that will push out a notification to everyone in that area, whether you have service or not, letting you know it's time to go.
But if you don't have service, you still get to know.
Yes, that is correct.
Wow.
Just a variation on that, I know Comcast had been updating their backup system so their system stays live, because I know that's the default for a lot of people. Has that been implemented, and how many hours now will Comcast stay alive after after power goes down? It won't? Yeah, but I know, weren't they by law required to extend out? Because if they provided phone service, I forget how many hours of backup they were going to be legally.
The minute the power goes out, Comcast goes out and they.
Right, but I know that weren't they required to do an extension out on that? I didn't know if anybody communicated with them on what
So
type of.
that is something that I can't answer.
I was just gonna ask, if you have a transistor radio, does it go out on an FM frequency?
Not yet, we're still working on that program.
So we will contact our local radio stations, letting them know, sure everyone in their car has a radio, hopefully. And you can tune into the local channels and listen on there as well. We do try and work with Calaveras Community TV to push out notifications through that as well.
Regarding the evacuated tags, many people up here have front doors that are like way up at the top of the winding driveway, and we don't have mail service, so we don't have mailboxes at the thing. Would it be better to put that on where your address is posted? Where would you guys like to have them?
Yes, so that would probably be the best location, or jack fence or a gate in front of your house, somewhere near the driveway.
So at the road,
Lawn.
The main road and your driveway, as close as you can get it to that.
Any other questions?
So coincidentally, this morning I got an email from Newsbreak Arnold, and one of the stories was 2023 Northern California Wildfire Resources. The source here is KCRA, and that takes you to a link, which is Calaveras County GIS. And the first thing they want to know if you want to find out what evacuation zone you're in is what is your ArcGIS login with password.
So
Why do we need a password to find out what zone I'm
you do not need to sign up for that if you do not want to. You can just go on that ArcGIS, and the first thing that's going to pop up is that zone haven. So you can sign up and make an account if you want. You don't have to, because no matter what, through Everbridge, if you're signed up, or WIA, you will get notified, letting you know that it's time to evacuate or not.
What is the delivery system for the WIA?
You know anything about that?
No, I don't, but I can get some answers for you guys.
Yeah, we'll get back to you. Let Supervisor Hubbard know. And
What was the question?
what is the method of delivery for WIA?
What is WIA?
What is WIA?
So WIA is a
Wireless emergency alert.
Thank you.
It's a state resource that we can request, the county can request from the state to push out notifications if there is no service or if, say, Everbridge is down.
But that's only in a very dire situation.
Yes, that is if it's very, there's a fire and we need to notify residents.
Do you ever go through and clean out the database,
Regularly?
We
Yeah.
signed up
Yeah.
years ago for Everbridge or whatever was the notification.
Yes,
Are we still there?
yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I was just wondering, if you guys ever considered along the four corridor putting some kind of a, like, we have the air raid sirens, but something that does a specific beep, 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 or some kind of thing up and down so that people who can't get their phone to work, or they're outside, or they're doing something driving that they would hear that and they would know that it's an emergency.
So I'm going to divert that to Chief
Could you
Johnson.
repeat the question?
The question was, for those that don't have service and can't be notified, is there a siren that we can go play?
Yeah, I'm familiar with what you're asking about, the civil defense siren, things like that. There are places like timber trails that have one that their staff is directed to use because it alerts that area. We have definitely looked into how that works with the topography here. I don't believe that's a viable situation. It may just say, hey, there's an emergency, do something, but we're not exactly sure what that is. So I think where the future lies to help us all out is the FM alert, like the sheriff's office had mentioned. That's about a $1 million investment to get that operational. I believe all the individuals that seek alternate funding are looking for that. That would be an FM frequency activated box. I believe they even have lights like our fire trucks and police cars do that go off. You can put it on the wall, that you can be in a PSPS where the power shut down and whatnot. It could be alternate ways of powering it. It alerts like a siren in your house and then the lights go off. I think that's really the way we need to look at it in case our infrastructure is impacted like this gentleman in the back I mentioned earlier. So I probably didn't answer the question correctly.
Can I go back to my other question? I just want to
Yes.
ask, if you can get an FM signal up the hill, why couldn't the radio station help us? That's what I kind of meant by.
The radio stations can, right, but it's, what radio station are we listening to, the cabin? Probably, that's 93.5, it gets a really good signal here, they get a lot of information out, but we really don't have a radio station dedicated to an emergency alert, but the FM alert would already be pre-programmed to receive the emergency signal exactly the way an FM signal could. And really in this rural area where cell service is a challenge, signals are a challenge, FM signals are a very good way to get information out in an area like ours.
I'm gonna date ourselves a little bit here, but is that like the old Plectron system?
I believe, I don't know what frequency, but yes, it works off of the same thing. You know, a cellular service, and I'll go down a real quick rabbit hole, works at about 700 megahertz, which is awesome for penetrating concrete, but it doesn't go very far. And it's really a short wave, right? So in order to go over a massive mountain, really an AM frequency that travels a huge bandwidth is good. FM not quite as good, but pretty darn close, right? So when you have that FM channel on your car and you're driving down the road, and it comes in clear, a little fuzzy, then it comes in clear again. Cellular requires a lot more infrastructure to maintain a good signal. That's why as soon as you get off the road a little bit, sometimes your cell phones go away. FM's a much more reliable way to cover a massive geographical area with lots of topography like our mountains. Hi, Holly.
Hey, Mike. During the campfire, there was an advection wind event. It started at night. The fire started in the dark, and those people incinerated, a lot of them, because they weren't even awake in the morning, because they were old people. And how are you going to be able to alert them when you don't have your FM radio on at 6 a.m.?
So that kind of goes back to what Lieutenant Stark said was, the sheriff's office will have a deputy come by and knock on the doors.
They didn't have the time for that.
Yeah.
It was a 3-hour lapse between ignition point to torching paradise.
It is a tragedy, and sometimes that can't be avoided. I do know that the fire service on large fires fly at night. They use infrared to monitor fires, and that flight time's gotten a lot better. I know they have firehawks that fly at night, so they can detect that sooner, but we can't. Mother Nature is going to do what she does, and there has to be, we can't predict and stop everything, and that was a 100% tragedy. I know what you're talking about. And other than evacuating a larger area that did not seem reasonable at the time, there's not much that could have been done differently.
Well, if there were sirens, I mean, we've got the Cal Fire Station and our great fire stations here. If the sirens were going off just like the old school in the 50s and early 60s, air raid sirens, the atomic alerts, they have them everywhere. Why can't we do that?
So, the question was why back to the air raid sirens or noise alert systems. I'm going to go back to what Chief Johnson and support what he said. The amount of sirens we would have to have, the number of them, were they damaged by fire, the electricity fueling them or powering them during a fire is often just, it's just not there. And the battery backups only last so long, so the air raid sirens, I don't know the cost, but it'd be quite substantial, and the maintenance on that. I don't know that that's the answer. I support what Chief Johnson said. I don't know that's the answer for that situation.
But the fire stations have sirens.
No. He said no and I said no. So.
Yeah, the civil defense air raid sirens that were held over from World War II that some fire stations had were to, once upon a time, alert the volunteer firefighters to come to the station to respond in the middle of the night. I understand the methodology by turning that around. Anyway, I understand the methodology to let the area know, but the topography of the mountains blocks the sound. Like, if I put one at Station 1 and you're at Greensboro Way, Blue Lake Springs, you won't hear the siren. So they're not protected. If we put one at Cal Fire Station, I'm certain that your house will hear it,
Oh, yeah.
but the people in Lakemont won't. And so on and so forth. So who gets a notification and who doesn't? The answer isn't, hey, let's protect whoever can hear it and everybody else, you're on your own. But let's get a system like FM.
We're a tight-knit community. If I heard something like that, I don't think I would be calling.
No, and I understand, but what would you, hey, we got to evacuate, we got to do whatever. It's better to have a system that comes with a clear and concise alarm within your home, and along with that, information of what's going on. The sirens just don't cover everybody, just because the sound just won't get to them. We need to have something that alerts people specifically in their houses. Go ahead. I'll take this young lady right here.
So you can track it, say there's a fire down in Hazel or Murphy's.
So the question was, how fast is CAL FIRE posted on their website? Not as fast as Watch Duty. They make sure that everything they put out is 100% vetted between acreage, structures burned, so that's not an immediate go-to for information, unless, caveat, it's a massive fire and their public information officer will put out a morning and an afternoon update of what you're looking for. So that's, and did you mention aircraft about CAL FIRE? Did I hear that also in your question?
Yeah, I mean.
If you guys didn't hear that with BJ, we are blessed to have Columbia right next door to us. If you guys were here for the Ebola fire, I was out there and watched it. It was an absolute air show. I mean, they were dumping, as the turnaround time was 10 or 15 minutes to fly back and fly in. We had the lake right there, it was low at the time, but they dumped water out of it. I mean, it was an absolute air show. So we were so fortunate to have that asset close to us. So to answer your question, depending on the incident and what's going on at the time, they're not as up to date.
What are we doing to help ourselves with this whole solid waste? Trying to get better service for the 40,000 people that live in this community.
So that's something that I can't really touch on. That's probably going to be your carrier, whether that's Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. I know we did try and get Verizon out here. Yeah, so Supervisor Huckabee said that they tried to get all three carriers out here, but that's something that I can't justify or get more information on.
We have done a big cleanup around Evans Pass. Okay, who's maintaining that cleanup?
So the question was that there was cleanup done around Evans Pass, and who was maintaining that?
All right, well, I'm not the expert. I have a little information. I'll do my best because I don't think the pros are here today. So the big cleanup, I believe what you're referring to, Bertha, is the actual fuels reduction projects and a lot of all that work. And really that gets done by some nonprofit groups, right? One of them is the Fire Safe Council. One of them is the RCD. One of them is CalAM, and the list goes on, right? So there is a huge effort that's been going on for a number of years that has connected the dots across private, state, federal, you name it, lands, and done this fuels reduction and leveraged the programs that are out there at the state. Oh, hey, there's Jill Machow. She's been very active. And it's all those pieces working together. We should be ultra, ultra proud of that cooperation. Today's the evacuation meeting, but we talked a lot about it in the Wildfire Preparedness Day a few weeks ago. So I'll just end with this, is there's a lot of funding out there to get those established. And now we're turning a corner where I believe we're going to see some funding come through to maintain the maintenance part of it. So there's some effort for that. Yes, sir.
You became county, still active. They had a volunteer fire department. Is there a volunteer services that we have down here? Do you have enough personnel helping to get to the fire?
I think the question is, up in Dorrington, there's a volunteer fire station, Evans Pass. Do we have enough personnel to meet our needs for the public? And I would have to say that's a pretty loaded question, right? We always have enough until we don't. And then we have to call in mutual aid, and that reaction time is where it really hurts us. So the answer is, I want more people. I'd love volunteers. Volunteerism, just my real quick soapbox is, people are doing a lot. The able-bodied folks that can fight fire are usually working a lot more jobs to make ends meet, in my opinion. They don't necessarily have time to volunteer. And the older folks that have time to volunteer maybe aren't suitable always for ready to go into fire. So we have this real challenge with today's dynamic of having volunteers. We just don't have as many as we used to. And that really impacts that firehouse. We do put people on it on big holiday weekends and whatnot. And usually, majority of the time we have the personnel. Although on a big incident, we're going to rely on our partners to bring in mutual aid to help us with the big incidents. So.
Can I add just a couple of things to Bertha's first? That $6.7 million is raised and 10,000 acres have been conditioned to a sustainable forest. Regarding your question about maintenance, that was the biggest part of the last town hall. Was the work's been done, but you need to continue to do that work. And just the place, I live just below the Utica system. That got masticated last year. The manzanita are already this high. So it needs to be. McKay's is just starting, the county, Cameron. We're working on McKay's to get that signed. That's a $2 million project near Love Creek. And also, talk to Bertha. There is a, well actually, Bertha, you tell me.
I am gathering signatures for a petition to put fire repression on the ballot. And, you know, we're still recovering from fire all over the county, but we have to, you know, we have to maintain the cleanup and what have you. So as I say, we want to put fire suppression on the ballot. And so I do have petitions. And so I would be more than happy to take your signature this morning, as long as you're a registered Calaveras County resident. We need it, so it can be on the ballot. We have to get, and we need about 300 more signatures, and I think I have maybe 100 people in here, do I? Yeah, so, see me. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions for OES?
Well, I don't think I have it for OES, I think I have it for Mr. Johnson regarding SPI.
All right.
I'm fascinated with SPI, did a lot of research, you know, during the campfire, and I'm curious how much of Arnold is surrounded by SPI, and are they still continuing to plantation grow, or are they starting to thin out their trees?
Boy, I really feel blessed to have the opportunity to speak for SPI. Hopefully Steve Kafka's here. I think he left because I couldn't find him earlier. And that guy's really good about showing up. Hey, see you later. SPI has about 70,000 acres here within our fire district. 70,000. So, and my numbers could be way off. Here's what I think I know, and so. They continue to work the area and do their operation, of logging. I'm not sure how they go about or how frequently they do their plantations. That question I really can't answer. I do want to tell you though that as far as being a firefighter, and I did spend a stint of my time in my career as a wildland firefighter, looking at how the forest has got the thinning out there, how they do it. And some folks may be in here and go, wow, when I go out in the forest, that doesn't look so good to me. When I go out there as a wildland firefighter, I think we can make a stand here and keep fires from coming in our community in some of these areas due to the fact that the fire intensity would be forced from crown fires, ground fires, give us an opportunity with firefighters and fire trucks, a place to even retreat, regroup if we had to keep battling fire and keep it out of our community. So there's a lot of positive things when working within the SPI lands of how they're managing it from a firefighters and fire suppression perspective. So I just want to leave it at that and, you know, give you peace of mind.
Well,
Okay?
I just, you know, I did a lot of, I'm a person that researches everything. And I researched the campfire and I noticed that the SPI was above, you know, Paradise. And they had the trees all nice together and it was like a bonfire, so just curious. I mean,
Oh, I see, when they leave the slash piles.
and it came down because every, you know, they had planted plantation style with very little space in between.
I would say this, when you take a trip out 7N08, which is the road at the end of White Pines here, take a drive out there when there's no wildfire, of course, and then just make a trip. When you go out there and you look off to the right, you can see down and off the road really well, and you get out there and you'll see the U.S. Forest Service has done some thinning and it looks like a park and it's fantastic. And farther up, SPI's done some work, but you get that vantage point, you see that view, and it's not just like a blanket of forest. That gives us an opportunity to fight fire. So just keep that in mind. That's my point.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
This is comment. We live off of Colony Drive east, and we back up to SPI land. And they came out last year and masticated everything behind us and left 30 feet between each tree. And it's beautiful. It's a great fire break for us.
Amen. Amen. Yeah.
Good job.
And it was Steve who helped out there.
Can you speak about burn permits?
Yeah, I've had. She wants to speak about burn permits. It's really, I'm going to defer to Supervisor Hubbard. I could go on about a lot of things. And maybe we could go offline with some of these questions. But if we want to keep, do you want to keep the topic more or less on the evacuation?
Yeah, I'd love to get more information before I answer that as well.
No, and I'm fine answering it, even though CAL FIRE, I don't believe, is here anymore. I think we got enough to give you enough information, but we could talk.
Is there a time of the year you can't burn?
So real quick, let's talk about the current time of the year. And we have residential door burn permits are required. You can only get them online now. You can't get them in person. That all happened right around the COVID time. I don't know if that's saying like bad language anymore, but back in COVID, they went all online. You have to go on there, put in your proper address where you're going to burn, and then you watch a short video and you get a burn permit. The burn permit's good for 1 year. The requirements are that it's no greater than 4 foot in diameter. You have to be present. You have to have a tool to manage a fire, and you have to have a hose nearby. All the clearance around has to be 10-foot perimeter all the way around down to bare mineral soil, and you can't leave anything unattended. On top of that, you have to call 209-754-6600 every day to make sure that it's a burn day and that there's no burn hour restrictions. Sometimes we go from 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. Sometimes it's not restricted by time, but you have to listen to that recording each and every day. And you can't drive to work with your fire still smoldering, because now you're in violation because you're not present. Soon, probably in another week or two, as CAL FIRE deems that it's now fire season, there will be no burning, and we will go into full burn restrictions. Now, the next question we get is, what if somebody has a warming, cooking, ceremonial fire and they're doing it appropriately, meaning not burning pine needles or leaves? Can they do it? And the answer is yes, they can. Now, we do not recommend doing this when it's 100 degrees out and there's embers going everywhere, because there's a possibility that'll have an issue. Maybe use something, if you really want to do it, that has a valve that you can turn off. Those are just some suggestions, they're not requirements. As we move through the summer and things get more dire, be more vigilant on what kind of fire activity you have outside. And the drier things are, the more of risk they are. So keep that in mind. I just ask you to do that, being cautious. And then as we move into the fall, we get about 2 inches of rainfall, and CAL FIRE feels like we can go back to permit burning. We do. Here's where people really get hung up, though, is when we go into open burn, which is in the wintertime when we're not permit burning, and you can have a fire to get rid of your, forest litter, we'll call it, and You can do it any way you want, however you want, and don't have to be present. The only real rule is that the fire does not leave your property line and fire trespass onto another property. And then it becomes a really, really big deal because fire trucks have to come out. The person responsible could theoretically be responsible for everything that goes on for that fire suppression. But people go, wait a minute, the pile's got to be 4x4, and it's like, well, if you're an open burn, it could really be a broadcast burn, and they don't even have to be present as long as it doesn't actually leave their property. So happy to answer those questions more offline. It is a CAL FIRE regulation. I just happen to know a little bit about it, working closely with them. So thank you.
So the question, say the statement was that there is low ratings on Everbridge. It's 2.6. Is there anyone working? So the question was, the rating on Everbridge is 2.6. Is there anyone working on it to make it user friendly? 2.0. Sorry. I'm going to say yes. Same thing with Zone Haven. They are working on it to make it more user friendly. And so those are updates that every day they're working on. The engineers are adding new software and new information. All right, anything else for OES?
I don't know who it would be directed to, but what is going on with those lights in Murphy's and possibly practicing what we can actually do?
Perfect. So we are going to transition actually just into that. I'm going to hand it back to Lieutenant Starks.
So I'm going to fill in for CHP. They had a fatality collision today, and the deputy that was here, the officer was here, had to go to another critical call. To answer your question, there's two things we can do during a wildfire to help expedite traffic. Number one, it's a possibility, but it's not a good option, and we're not going to employ that. Speaking for CHP, is the reverse flow, so both eastbound and westbound traffic go in one direction. That's not viable for our conditions in our geographical area. Too many tributaries or too many roads entering into the main roadway, so we're probably not going to do that. The second is to have a deputy CHP officer, law enforcement officer, somebody at the light in Murphy's to expedite the flow. On behalf of CHP, that is part of their primary goal. They wanted me to impress upon you at some days there's 2 to 3 officers on, and our primary goal will be alerting people. So we're going to go to the mandated or mandatory evacuation areas first. Once we get a foothold on that, somebody, law enforcement officer, will go to the light down in Murphy's. We'll also coordinate with Angels Camp if we have to keep pushing people out. And I say Murphy's, that's on your top of your minds right here, but Angels Camp also has that ability to do that. So that's part of the primary initial response plan. Any other questions for CHP that I can possibly stumble through? Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to push forward and ask Michael Lagagna to come up from Health and Human Services, and then go right on to the Red Cross because we're running out of time, and then questions afterwards if we could.
I'll be as brief as possible if we can put the slides up. My name is Michael Lagagna. I am the Assistant Director of Health and Human Services. I've been with Calaveras County for about 16 years. Worked my way through public health, now with the agency. In here, we're talking about wildfire evacuation planning. So some of the topics that I'll cover today, and I'll be very brief because Red Cross is also here, as well as our other partners who answered some questions already. I'll talk about the incident response for 2023 so far, the role that Health and Human Services plays in regards to mass care and shelter, how we prepared as an agency, some of the partnerships that we've built to strengthen our response, tips in terms of community preparedness, and our contact information. So if you have any, want to know more about our services and programs, that you can reach out to us. I won't go too much into the numbers, but the numbers are also on a handout in the back. Just talks about the incident so far in 2023 and what our response has been through Health and Human Services, through the shelters and warming centers that we provided, to the disaster recovery center that we did in response to the winter storms, and talking about our bed capacity and evacuation sites, which Red Cross will cover as well. We've already heard OES talk about the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center. That really, when that gets activated, they activate what are called the emergency support functions. And there's over 15 disciplines. One happens to be Emergency Support Function 6, or in short, we just call it ESF 6, which is on mass care and shelter. And really what that is HHSA is responsible for providing the basic needs of care, shelter, and recovery for people. And how we make those decisions, and I do want to talk about that because it does get a little complex. And we know that incidents are dynamic, so they're changing, so we have to scale up or down our response and our resources. So it depends on the incident type and size. This includes the magnitude of the incident and what that plays in terms of our response with our partners, the populations that are affected. We must be able to scale our response accordingly so that we have sufficient resources for those who are in need. We have to take a look at the fact that Calaveras County is an aging population. Almost a third of our population is over the age of 60. So we have to make sure that we have the necessary resources available in terms of staffing, in terms of supplies, in terms of facilities, in terms of capabilities. So we partner regularly with public health, which lands under the Health and Human Services umbrella, to provide additional resources for those with access and functional needs. So if we needed to open up a shelter specifically for those with access and functional needs, we can. That'll be requested by us to provide additional support through medical personnel and medical supplies. In terms of risk, we also have to take into consideration some of the potential hazards and vulnerabilities. So we will not put staff where there's danger. So we have to plan accordingly. We have to scale according to the incident type and size. We also have to know what our availability is in terms of personnel and our operational capabilities. Of course, we partner regularly with multiple organizations, including the Red Cross, and I'll talk more about those. But let me talk to you about how we prepared as an agency. I've been the assistant director for a little over a year. Within the first month, I implemented agency-wide policy that requires ICS training for all HHSA staff, which was a pretty amazing feat. So every new staff person has to complete their ICS, or Incident Command System training, within 3 months of hiring. So we implemented that. That's been going well. We also cross-train staff in different areas of the incident command structure. We've heard ICS talked about earlier. That's just a standardized approach. They use it in law enforcement and fire. We also use it in public health and health and human services. It's just a standardized approach to addressing and responding to emergencies. We've partnered closely with the Red Cross. We actually have 2 emergency shelter trainings and a shelter leader training happening this month. So thankfully, Red Cross has been there with us to provide staff training so that we can smoothly operate evacuation shelters if the need arises. We've also organized our response. So we've categorized, we have an agency of 220 staff. We've categorized all of those by teams, by area of residence, so that we can have a very smooth and very efficient response when we need to open up an emergency shelter in the community. We also have an emergency shelter trailer. That trailer contains all of our cots, blankets, hygiene kits, fans, heaters, signage, lighting, and additional supplies. I believe we have enough for 50 cots. Red Cross, I believe, has a 100-cot trailer. So we can definitely scale up or scale down any type of response that we have. And any additional resources, we rely on our neighboring counties, including some of our partners at CDSS, the California Department of Social Services, to request additional supplies if we need to. The most recent thing that we added to our list was the rapid response kits. That allows our staff to rapidly do some intake and immediately show up to evacuation points or emergency shelters while we wait for additional resources. Sometimes we can't get the trailer there. Sometimes we have roadblocks. In the recent winter storms, the road was blocked in 2 different areas. We couldn't get the trailer there, but we can get staff there. We can respond and do some intake so that we know what do an assessment to identify what needs people have as they come to the emergency shelter. Of course, collaboration is key during an emergency, so we rely on so many different partners. Even within Health and Human Services, there's a lot of integration happening with behavioral health, public health, Calaveras County Office of Emergency Services, the American Red Cross, the Calaveras Mariposa Community Action Agency, which actually purchased those rapid response kits, as well as our federal and state partners, CDSS, Cal OES, FEMA, and the City of Angels Camp, which have all played a role in our emergency response for mass care sheltering. Our services not just include emergency sheltering during an evacuation. We also provide human services, so people who are on CalFresh, which is a type of food assistance. We can replace any lost items that they lost during a disaster through our emergency CalFresh funds. We also provide additional outreach to our veterans assistance through our veterans program and other services through our adult services. And for those who have access and functional needs, we can push additional outreach and information to them if that's available. We rely on public health. They function, they oversee ESF 8, which is public health and medical. So if there's any infectious diseases, any other biological, chemical, or other events, or any additional medical support that we need at an evacuation shelter, we can rely on them to make that request and get that there. Our behavioral health department or division provides crisis support at any of our emergency shelters, so they will provide any mental health support that's needed there. One of the additional services that we also do is plan and organize and coordinate the local assistance center. We also helped plan and coordinate the disaster recovery center this last winter storm. So those are just some of the things that we do as part of the agency's response in emergency. 3 messages is to be prepared, be evacuation ready, and be informed. And so these are some of the resources that are available specifically to certain populations. We get a lot of people with pets. People will not leave their pets, they will bring them. Unfortunately, and Red Cross can talk about this, we don't allow pets into the evacuation shelters. There are only 2 types of pets that are, well, not pets, but service animals that are allowed. I found out one last year. One happens to be obviously a service dog. The other is a miniature pony, which is a service animal. So I learned that last year. So we do make accommodations for those who have service animals that bring them to the emergency shelters. We have worked with animal services on addressing the needs of people with pets in utilizing some spaces that can accommodate crates and any other spaces that we can allow for pets to be there along with their owners. For older adults, there is some information in terms of medication, in terms of things to consider when you're putting together your go bags. If you're interested, I know someone in the audience said that they like to research. ICS Resource Center is a good way to learn about the incident command structure and what we use in emergency response. And I do want to take a moment to plug the Senior Peer Program. We do have some information available in the back. It really engages those who are 60 and older who sometimes suffer or experience social isolation. It's just an opportunity to connect with those folks, and it's so crucial when it comes to disasters that we have a connection with them, that they can rely on someone for information. And we do have volunteers that meet with them in person, they give them calls, we try to meet some of their needs. So if you're interested in being part of that, information is on the back, and we do provide those services to older adults. Here's our contact information if you have any questions regarding our response. our location, our website, as well as our Facebook page. If you go onto our Facebook page, we do post that information. If it comes to an evacuation shelter, we do rely on our partners, OES, to push that information out. You will get that information in terms of where that location is. And again, sometimes that emergency is dynamic. Things change. We have to change sometimes the location of the evacuation shelter, because on paper, it's great on paper, but in practice, not so great. And sometimes we have to be able to respond and scale up or scale down the response and make some of those adjustments to meet the needs of our community. Thank you.
Yes.
Any questions?
Hello, hello, hello. You guys are doing so good. Thank you so much for prioritizing your safety, your neighbor's safety, your community's safety. We're going to watch a 5-minute video. It's very informative. It's very good. My name is Rebecca Mitch. I'm a disaster program manager for the American Red Cross. I've been here for 3 months. Don't let that scare you. We've got 1800s is when the American Red Cross has been available to us. Over every 8 minutes, we're responding to a disaster in the nation. Over 60,000 disasters every year. So you're in good hands. I've got a big team supporting. Okay. So go ahead. We're going to go ahead and watch this and enjoy.
Hey
This
there,
is Luke.
my name is Luke with the American Red Cross, and I'm going to talk about how you can be Red Cross ready when evacuating your home in case of a wildfire. The Red Cross works with the fire service and others to ensure you get the best advice. This 5-minute video is about getting out safely and quickly, nothing else. You have the power to help your family and keep them safe. If there's wildfire in the area, get ready to evacuate and keep an eye on the fire and its progression. Always follow the advice of local officials, but when in doubt, get out. Here are 5 pro tips to help you evacuate safely and quickly. Number 1, sign up for emergency alerts. Do a quick search online right now with your town name and emergency alerts, and it will take you to the sign up page for alerts. You can usually sign up for email, text, and phone calls. If you're on social media, follow your agencies involved with fires, like fire departments, emergency management, and local news. Search for your town or county name, plus sheriff, police, or fire department. Most will post fire updates in real time, and Twitter usually has the most real-time updates. Most fire names also get a hashtag. If you aren't on social media or your community doesn't offer a sign-up page for emergency alerts, you should contact your local sheriff or fire department or call 211 for local guidance. Number 2, plan for extra support if needed during the evacuation. If you or anyone in your home needs extra time to get around or needs someone to help them with daily tasks, if you have a disability or if you're injured or pregnant, you need to have a plan that ensures you have adequate notification, transportation, medical equipment, and support. If you need help during an evacuation, identify several people you can rely on who can help out. Look to family members, neighbors, caregivers, or friends who can help you. You always want to have backup support. Don't forget to plan for your pets. Make sure you pack a crate, leash, food, and medicine. If you have large animals, check out your county's plan for the best way to evacuate them. Number 3, prepare to leave. Prepare your car or transportation route via bus or friend and pack your bag. Do a quick search online to look up the best evacuation routes and transportation options from your home. Just search the name of your town plus fire evacuation routes, or call 211, your county department of transportation, sheriff, or the fire department and ask them for the information. Pick 2 routes in case one is blocked. Mark them on a map of the area. If you use paratransit, know your local options and phone numbers. Always try to keep your car's gas tank at least half full. You don't want to hit empty while getting out of town. Practice being ready to leave in under 5 minutes. When you hear about notifications that your area is under threat, make sure you have your go bag. Keep your phone charged and your ringer on loud. Getting your bag ready and having an evacuation checklist that you keep on your fridge can help you quickly grab those important items and take care of last-minute tasks. Check the description below for a sample checklist. If possible, Establish an out-of-state or out-of-area contact that you can check in with and let them know you're safe. They can then inform your friends and family so you can focus on yourself. Number 4, plan where you can stay. Do you have friends or family in a nearby town or area you can stay with? If you don't, check your evacuation notices, social media, websites, and the radio to find a safe place to go. Often a temporary evacuation point or a Red Cross shelter. Pre-identify locations where you might stay and ensure they allow your pets if you have them. Check the description below to download the Red Cross Emergency app, which also shows all open shelters on a map. Number 5, evacuate. Carefully monitor conditions in your area. Keep track of fires near you so you can be ready to evacuate quickly. If authorities advise you to evacuate, be prepared to leave immediately with your go bag of emergency supplies. Law enforcement works closely with fire departments, and they'll usually let you know your evacuation level. Remember, traffic often gets really backed up, so leave early. Understand that you may not receive an evacuation order. Don't rely on getting the order. Things happen. The internet, phone lines, or cell service might not be working. You need to take the initiative, so pay attention to your surroundings. Let's recap our 5 tips. Number 1, sign up for emergency alerts. Number 2, plan for extra support if needed during the evacuation. Number 3, prepare to leave. Number 4, plan where you can stay. Number 5, evacuate. And remember, if you feel like you should evacuate, go. Don't wait. That's all for this video. Make sure to subscribe below, hit the like button if you found this helpful, and share this video with your friends and family. For more information, check out the Red Cross Emergency app that we've linked below and visit redcross.org/prepare. Thank you for watching.
redcross.org/prepare.
Red Cross Ready.
Definitely make note of that. You can reference that at any time, redcross.org/prepare. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Once we get the slides up here. That's okay. No problem. So just a little bit of information. We are a 95% volunteer-run organization. 95%. We literally have volunteers that can stand up a shelter in 2 hours. We've got trailers staged strategically around the county. We've got 25 evacuation sites ready to roll, depending on where Michael and our partners decide is the best fire behavior for us to go ahead and set up that site. So you're in good hands. All right, so be Red Cross ready. Preparedness essentials. Can y'all see? All right, this is going to be interactive, so the more the merrier. Feel free to, just say something quite loud, no problem. Okay, disasters happen often and sometimes without warning, most definitely. Mother Nature and the mother lode is active.
Yes.
Good thing is this is a very calm year.
Yeah.
The least calm in 8 years history, so that's good. So we've got hopefully a very calm season ahead. All right, however, fires can affect any community, and people can get hurt. That's what makes it a disaster. People can get hurt, property is damaged or destroyed, and normal response systems possibly could be overwhelmed. All right, today we are focusing on fire preparedness. That said, we've got all kinds of disasters happening all over the place. Some of our volunteers are in Guam today. Some of them are in the Mississippi tornadoes. We've got tsunamis happening right and left. But today we're going to focus on fire preparedness. Okay, just like Luke said, we want to focus on you taking the initiative to be ready. It's up to you to be ready. Don't count on everyone helping you. Please, please, please take your own initiative. Do a few things for us. Get your go bag ready to go. Got to have a go bag. Make a plan. Be informed. 3 things, right? Go bag, make a plan, be informed. Okay, you can prepare. You got to get ready to adapt, right? Fires, you have to quickly adapt. Next slide, please. All right, let's go ahead and just review really quickly. Okay, what's one thing that we can do?
Go back.
Go back, who said that? Oh yes, I love it. Got to have a go bag. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lovely.
That's a go.
Okay, what else?
That's a go thermos.
Make a plan, who said that? Oh, ho, 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 ho. Eeny, meeny, miny, here you go. Thank you, Bertha. You're welcome. Okay. Next one. Next one.
Going.
Next one.
Go.
There it is. Oh, almost there. That's okay. Okay, get a kit, make a plan, be informed. All right, what does your kit look like? It can look like your everyday diaper bag. It can look like a suitcase. It can look like a backpack. What do we got here? Here's a go bag. Check it out. If you received one of these today, please raise your hand. I'm sorry I didn't bring more. I didn't expect everybody to come here. I'm so glad. Please use this. Have one in your car. Have one by your door. Have one in a closet ready to roll. What's in it? What do you think you're going to put in it?
Medication.
Water. Boom. Water. Great. What else?
Medication.
Medication. How much medication?
Everything.
Everything, like for a month. In a childproof cat, ideally. What else?
Insurance papers.
Financial papers, Ziploc bag, financial papers, passport. What about cash? How about cash?
Yes.
How much?
Lots.
Lots. At least a couple hundred, ideally. What do we got in here? We have got, cell surface mini booster. All right, I'm gonna ask you tough questions. This is up for grabs here. Now, are you ready? What are you gonna have by your door?
Go back.
Boom! Go back, yes. All right, what are you gonna have in your car?
Go back.
One more time?
Go back.
All right, so check it out. Here's a safety tube, mask, whistle, light stick, water pouch, and emergency blanket. Boom, in your go bag. All kinds of things available for you. What are we gonna have by the front door? In the closet? In the car? How full is our car full of gas?
Full.
Fire season, every day. Full, full, full. Please don't wait for an emergency.
Yep.
All right. I love handing this stuff out. That's great. I'm not going to torture you and hand out everything in here. However, there is all kinds of good stuff in here. We've got blankets, we've got pouches, we've got all kinds of things that are food, change of clothes. What else?
Water.
Cash, medicine, yes. You can customize your go bag for you and only you in your car and by the front door. Very important. You can take this initiative today, especially since many of you got this. Did anybody not get one of these? I love it when people sit in the front row. Boom. Okay, here's my go bag. I've got one in my car. I've got one in my work truck. I've got one by my front door. I've got one in my closet. I've got one, what if I have to go out my back door? Could be. I made a plan. Front door's fired, so I have to go to the back. Boom, run to the back door, I've got one right there too. You wanna make sure you have them all over the place. Prepare, prepare, prepare during blue skies. All right, make a plan. When we're making a plan, we have a fire escape plan. When you have children, you have grandchildren, please go through this with them. Let them know they can go out the front door, they can go out the back door, they can break a window. Absolutely. Have them get it out of the house. You want them to also know to go to a location close to the home. Maybe it's a stop sign. Maybe it's a local school. Maybe it's a friend's house. Somewhere local. That's plan A. Plan B would be if your family needs to relocate or reunify, it's in a different town. Maybe it's your favorite restaurant, Lodi Pietros. Okay? Have a plan A local and a plan B to reunify if you have to get out of Dodge. Okay. And last but not least, be informed. Very important for you to be informed. If you cannot be informed and you feel threatened, please leave. Okay? Got your go bag ready to go? You have a plan, you know where to go. Go ahead and go. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we went through this. We crushed it. Gather the essentials. Yes, food, 1 gallon per person per day of water, medicines, radio, flashlight. Yes, 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 and yes. You can customize it too. All right, next slide. Oh, also, if you have pets, be sure to bring your pets' meds. Be sure to bring your pets food. Nothing's worse than a hungry pet, right? Okay. Next slide. Make a plan. What if you have children that's going to take a little bit more time? Allow for that. What if you have elderly that needs to take more time? What if you have a disabled person that needs more time? Please, please, please take an account to take time. Make sure that you give adequate time to leave. All right. And next one. Next one. And one more. Cool. Okay, we have apps as well. We definitely want you to download all the apps that you can. Watch Duty is a great one. Red Cross has several apps. Definitely you can stay informed with technology. But there's nothing better than each other, right? Be informed, know who your neighbors are, make sure you take care of the vulnerable populations, listen to the authorities, heed the warning. All right, so where are we gonna go? What's going to happen? What if we don't have family to go to? What if we don't have friends to go to? Guess what? Red Cross has you. We have 25 evacuation shelters in the county. With Michael Magana and our OAS partners, they will decide which one we go to. We have them strategically located all over the county, up and down the corridors, so that we can identify the best one to go to, based on how many people need to be sheltered. What does that mean? What does it even mean to be in a shelter? Well, basics. Food, water, blankets, roof over your head. That's it. We've got cots. We've got trailers strategically located all over the county as well. We can set up a shelter in 2 hours with 50 to 100 cots for people to sleep in. If we need to shift, let's say Mother Nature and the mother lode fire at shifts, we can relocate. Okay, we bus folks from shelter to shelter. All right, so we covered a lot of information today. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I just wanted to add, because this is fire, safety fire, all about fire. When you go back, put a mask.
Oh, great idea. Okay, so yes, there are some pollutants in the fire, definitely, in your go bag. If you have an N95 mask to protect yourself so you're not breathing in those pollutants, that will definitely help. Thank you so much. Any other questions or adding anything? All right, thank you so much, everybody. Number one we're going to do today is?
Go back.
Go back. Gotta love it. All right.
I just want to comment what a great job you guys did for the Butte Fire. We were put up at the Jackson Casino Rancheria for 9 days, and then they closed that down, and then we were over at the VFW in, I think it was Valley Springs. So you guys did an amazing job.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, very much. We will get these get this online. We'll also have notes with it, and we are going to create a small pamphlet that will come out because of it. I did want to make sure everybody is aware, so that Murphy's people will be able to watch this. And next week, June 6th, we're doing integrated waste management down at the Native Sons Hall at 5:30. So we'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Oh.